Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are taking a deep dive into a fascinating archaeological discovery that challenges our understanding of imperial power in ancient China. We are traveling to the bustling heart of Shijiazhuang, a modern metropolis of steel and glass in Hebei province. To the casual observer, this is a city of the future, a sprawling industrial hub dominated by the hum of traffic and the glow of neon lights. But beneath the asphalt of the Chang'an district, under the very foundations of high-rise apartments and shopping malls, lay a secret that had been sleeping for 2,000 years. For centuries, historians and locals knew of a place called Zhending. The name echoes through the annals of the Han Dynasty as a location of immense strategic and political weight. We knew it was a seat of power, where kings plotted, armies gathered, and empresses were born. But the physical reality of this ancient capital had vanished into the mists of time. Its location was a subject of scholarly debate and folklore, seemingly swallowed by the shifting sands of the Hutuo River and the relentless march of urbanization. That was, until the shovels of modern progress hit something hard, something deliberate, something ancient. What emerged from the earth was not just a collection of broken pottery or scattered coins, it was a phantom city, a sprawling urban ghost that had retained its skeleton long after its flesh had rotted away. This is the Dongyuan Ancient City, the lost capital of the Zhending Kingdom. When the Hebei Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology announced their findings, the academic world was stunned. The site covers a staggering 2.76 square kilometers. It is not merely a ruin, it is a fossilized imprint of imperial ambition. Unlike many ancient sites that are a jumble of overlaid eras, Dongyuan offered a pristine snapshot of the mid to late Western Han Dynasty and the early Eastern Han. The excavation revealed a city that was not grown organically from a village, but one that was designed. It was a grid of power, a physical manifestation of the Confucian order that the Han Dynasty sought to impose on the world. The crown jewel of this excavation is the massive palace complex located in the central northern part of the city. Measuring 125 meters from east to west and 23 meters from north to south, this was no provincial governor's residence. This was a royal court. The foundations are constructed of rammed earth, or hung-tu. This is a technique where layers of soil are pounded until they are as hard as stone. It is labor-intensive and costly, and in ancient China, it was the hallmark of elite construction. The sheer scale of the rammed earth platforms at Dongyuan suggests structures that would have towered over the surrounding plains. They were visible for miles, serving as a psychological weapon as much as an architectural one. Archaeologists uncovered brick-paved floors that still bore the sheen of use, extensive corridors that once whispered with court gossip, and sophisticated drainage systems that speak of a city obsessed with order. But the most telling artifact was a simple building material, the eave tile. In the debris of the palace, researchers found circular tile ends inscribed with the characters Zhending Changle and Fucheng Changle, meaning wealth and prosperity, eternal joy. To the untrained eye, these are just pleasant well wishes. To a historian, they are a bombshell. Changle, or eternal joy, was the name of the Changle Palace in the imperial capital of Chang'an. That was the residence of the Empress Dowager and one of the most sacred sites of Han power. By stamping Zhending Changle on their roof tiles, the kings of Zhending were not just wishing for happiness, they were explicitly linking their authority to the imperial center. They were declaring their capital to be a little Chang'an, a mirror image of the emperor's seat. It was a statement of loyalty, yes, but also of immense pride and near-imperial pretension. Beyond the palace, this Zhending blueprint reveals a city divided by function. The layout follows the classic Chinese principle of Cheng, meaning walls, and Shi, meaning markets. A crisscrossing network of wide roads dissected the city into functional zones. To the south and west of the palace lay the residential districts, where the city's elite would have lived in multi-story compounds. Further out were the workshops. Excavations have identified pottery kilns and metal casting sites. These were the industrial engines that kept the city running. These were not small-scale operations. They were state-controlled industries producing weapons, tools, and the endless stream of ceramic vessels needed for daily life and ritual burial. Outside the city walls, archaeologists found two large cemeteries. The placement of the dead was as regulated as the living, with clearly defined hierarchies visible in the size and richness of the tombs. This strict zoning is the blueprint in action, a city where every person, living or dead, had their assigned place in the cosmic and social order. But to understand why this provincial city was built with such grandeur, we must travel back to one of the most turbulent periods in Chinese history, the fall of the Western Han and the rise of the Eastern Han. The Dongyuan Ancient City was the stage for a drama that would determine the course of Chinese history for the next 2 centuries. The protagonist was Liu Yang, the king of Zhending. In the year 9 AD, the usurper Wang Mang seized the throne, ending the Western Han Dynasty and establishing his own Xin dynasty. The Liu imperial clan was decimated, stripped of their titles, and scattered. The vast empire fractured into chaos, with peasant rebellions tearing the countryside apart. In this vacuum of power, Zhending became a fortress of stability. The Liu family, who had ruled Zhending as a vassal state since the time of Emperor Jing, managed to hold on to their local power base. Enter Liu Yang. He was a direct descendant of the Han emperors, a man of royal blood with a distinct advantage. He had an army. While other pretenders to the throne were scrambling for support, Liu Yang sat securely behind the high walls of his capital, commanding a force of over 100,000 troops. He was the king of Zhending in all but name, a warlord with a royal pedigree. In the year 23 AD, a young and charismatic member of the Liu clan, Liu Shu, who would become the future Emperor Guangwu, arrived in the region. He was ostensibly on a mission to pacify the north for a rival claimant. But Liu Shu was in a precarious position. He was outnumbered, underfunded, and surrounded by enemies, including a pretender named Wang Lang who had declared himself emperor in nearby Handan. Liu Shu needed a miracle. He needed Zhending. The meeting between Liu Shu and Liu Yang at the Zhending capital was one of history's great turning points. Liu Yang held all the cards. He could have crushed Liu Shu and claimed the throne for himself, or joined the enemy. Instead, he saw something in the young general. But ancient alliances were rarely built on trust alone. They were built on blood. To seal the alliance, Liu Yang offered his niece, Shengtong, in marriage to Liu Shu. This was no simple wedding. It was a merger of military might and imperial legitimacy. Shengtong was a woman of exceptional pedigree. Her father was a wealthy landowner and her mother was a Han princess. By marrying her, Liu Shu gained not just a wife, but the 100,000 swords of the Zhending army. With the Zhending forces at his back, Liu Shu swept through the north. He crushed his rivals, pacified the peasant rebels, and in 25 AD, proclaimed himself Emperor Guangwu, the restorer of the Han Dynasty. The city of Zhending had played its hand perfectly. It was now the hometown of the Empress, the power base of the new dynasty's military, and the maternal home of the Restoration. The Zhending blueprint had proven its worth not just as a city plan, but as a political strategy. However, if the walls of Dongyuan could speak, they would also tell a tragedy. A story of two women, the one who helped build an empire and the one who stole the emperor's heart. The rise of Zhending came with a hidden cost, manifested in the rivalry between Empress Shengtong and Yin Lihua. Shengtong, the niece of the Zhending king, was the first empress of the Eastern Han. She bore Liu Shu his first son, the crown prince. For years, she reigned supreme. Her family, the Guos of Zhending, were showered with titles and wealth. Their capital city flourished, expanding and beautifying to reflect its status as the second home of the imperial family. But her marriage was a political transaction. Liu Shu had another wife, his childhood sweetheart, Yin Lihua, whom he had married before he needed the Zhending army. When he became emperor, he wanted to make Yin his empress, but the political reality of Zhending's military power forced his hand. He made Guo the empress and Yin a consort. The golden age of Zhending was soon threatened from within. In 26 AD, just a year after the restoration, rumors reached the emperor that Liu Yang, the king of Zhending, and the empress' uncle, was plotting a rebellion. It remains a mystery that historians still debate. Was Liu Yang truly rebelling, or had he simply become too powerful, a kingmaker who overshadowed the king? Some records suggest he was using distinct talismans and prophecies to claim he was destined to rule. Emperor Guangwu acted with ruthless efficiency. He sent generals to Zhending, not to fight, but to negotiate. During a meeting, Liu Yang was assassinated. In a normal timeline, this would have meant the extermination of his clan. But Liu Shu was a pragmatic ruler, and Shengtong was still his empress. He spared the Zhending family, allowing Liu Yang's son to inherit a reduced title. The city of Zhending was spared the torch, but the shadow of suspicion had fallen over its rammed earth walls. For 16 years, Shengtong sat on the Phoenix throne. But as the Zhending military faction's influence waned and the empire stabilized, Liu Shu's heart began to govern his head. He grew increasingly distant from Guo, citing her resentful behavior. In 41 AD, in an unprecedented move, Emperor Guangwu issued an edict deposing Empress Guo. He claimed she lacked the virtue of a mother of the state. He installed his true love, Yin Lihua, as empress. Shengtong was not killed, which is a rarity in Chinese history. She was demoted to a princess dowager and allowed to live out her days in comfort, likely back in the region of her birth. But the political centrality of Zhending was broken. The city that had birthed the dynasty's power was slowly pushed to the periphery, its blueprint for dominance rendered obsolete by the shifting affections of the emperor. While kings and emperors played their Game of Thrones, life in the Zhending capital hummed with a vibrancy that rivaled the imperial capital itself. Thanks to the Zhending blueprint and the nearby excavation of the Mancheng Han tombs, which was the resting place of a related Han prince, we can reconstruct the daily existence of the city's inhabitants in vivid technicolor. The palace at Dongyuan was a sensory experience. The rammed earth walls would have been plastered and painted, likely in the auspicious red of the Han court. The roof tiles, with their eternal joy inscriptions, capped heavy timber roofs that curved gracefully towards the sky. Inside, the floors were not cold dirt, but paved with patterned bricks. These bricks were often hollow, designed to insulate against the biting Hebei winters and the humid summers. The layout included vast halls for audiences, intimate chambers for the harem, and towering gate towers that served as both watchtowers and status symbols. The elite of Zhending lived in a world of exquisite craftsmanship. If we look to the artifacts of the region, we see a society obsessed with the afterlife and the preservation of the body. The jade burial suits, found in the tombs of Han princes, were likely manufactured in workshops within or near Zhending. These suits, made of thousands of plaques of jade sewn together with gold thread, were believed to prevent the body from decaying. The presence of such craftsmen in the city implies a highly specialized workforce of lapidaries and goldsmiths. Daily life was equally opulent. The Zhending nobility dined off lacquerware, a material more valuable than bronze. These cups and plates were painted with red and black swirls, depicting clouds, dragons, and immortals. They drank wine fermented from millet or rice, playing drinking games with 18-sided dice embedded with gold and silver and tossing bronze tokens into pots. One of the most famous artifacts from this region and era is the Changxin Palace lantern. While found in the nearby Mancheng tomb, it bears the inscription of the Changxin Palace, the residence of the Empress Dowager. It is highly probable that similar masterpieces of bronze engineering illuminated the nights in the Zhending Palace. Imagine the king of Zhending sitting in his hall, the gilded shutter of a bronze lantern adjusted to cast a beam of light on a bamboo scroll, while the smoke was cleverly funneled into the lamp's body to keep the air clean. This was a civilization that married high art with high utility. The streets of Zhending would have been a cacophony of commerce. The market section of the blueprint reveals a city that traded far and wide. Iron tools from local foundries, ceramics from the kilns, and silks from the south would have changed hands here. The sound of the zhang zither and the bronze bells would drift from the palace district, where musicians entertained the court with the solemn, ritualistic music of the Confucian rites, interspersed with the livelier folk songs of the Yan and Zhao regions. The Zhending blueprint is also a marvel of ancient engineering. The excavation of Dongyuan reveals a city that fought against the elements. Shijiazhuang sits on the alluvial fan of the Taihang Mountains, so water management was critical. The city planners of Zhending built an intricate system of ceramic drainage pipes. These were not crude ditches but interlocking pottery tubes, some laid beneath the brick floors of the palace, others running along the broad avenues. They gathered rainwater and wastewater, channeling it out of the residential zones and into the moat that surrounded the city. This focus on sanitation was a key feature of Han urbanism, preventing the disease outbreaks that plagued many ancient cities. The city was also a fortress. The rammed earth walls were likely over 10 meters high, thick enough to drive a chariot along the top. The gates were the weak points, and so they were fortified with barbicans and archer towers. The blueprint shows a city designed for war as much as for peace. This was necessary. The Hebei Plain was the highway for nomadic invasions from the north. The Xiongnu were a constant threat, and a vassal capital like Zhending was the first line of defense for the imperial heartland. So if Zhending was so magnificent, why was it lost? The answer lies in the shifting sands of politics and geography. Following the deposition of Empress Guo and the demotion of the Zhending kings, the city's prestige began to wane. But the death blow was likely environmental and administrative. In the chaotic years of the late Han and the Three Kingdoms period, the region was a battleground. Warlords like Yuan Shao and Gongsun Zan fought across these plains. The old city of Dongyuan, damaged by war and perhaps suffering from the silting of local waterways, became less viable. During the Sui and Tang dynasties, the administrative center was moved a few kilometers to the north, to what is today the Zhending Ancient City. This new city became the site of the famous Long-Ixing Temple and the pagodas that tourists visit today. As the bureaucrats and the merchants moved to the new Zhending, the old capital of Dongyuan was abandoned. Its palaces were stripped of their timber and tiles to build the new city. The rammed earth walls slowly eroded into mounds, eventually being flattened by farmers to create fields for wheat and corn. By the 20th century, the grand capital was nothing more than a few bumps in the landscape of a village named Dongyuan. When the modern city of Shijiazhuang exploded in size during the industrial boom, the site was almost swallowed by the urban sprawl. It was only the diligent work of the Hebei Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology that saved the site from oblivion. As Shijian planned its subway lines in new districts, the archaeologists went in. What they found confirmed the legends. The sheer density of the tile shards, the massive scale of the foundations, and the undeniable stamp of Changle proved that this was the lost seat of the Zhending kings. The unearthing of the Dongyuan Ancient City is more than just an archaeological triumph. It is a restoration of memory. For too long, the history of the Han Dynasty has been viewed through the lens of the imperial capitals, Chang'an and Luoyang. The Zhending blueprint forces us to look at the periphery, to the vassal kingdoms that were the muscles and sinews of the empire. It tells us that the Han culture was not just a monolith radiating from the center, but a replicated network of many capitals, each with its own court, its own economy, and its own ambitions. Zhending was a city that dared to dream it could be a kingmaker. It was a city that produced an empress, saved a dynasty, and then paid the price for its own power. Today, as you walk the streets of modern Shijiazhuang, with its high-speed trains and skyscrapers, it is humbling to think that beneath your feet lies the ghost of another metropolis. A city of rammed earth and high ambition, where the eternal joy of the Han Dynasty still echoes in the broken tiles of a lost palace. The Zhending blueprint has been unearthed, and with it, the lost soul of Hebei's ancient glory. While the Dongyuan site is currently an active archaeological zone, plans are underway to transform it into the Dongyuan Ancient City Archaeological Site Park. In the coming years, visitors will be able to walk the ancient grid, stand on the rammed earth platforms where King Luoyang once plotted the future of China, and see the Zhending Changle tiles that whispered of imperial dreams. Until then, the artifacts from the site are finding their way to the Hebei Museum, joining the jade suits and bronze lanterns to tell the complete story of the Han Dynasty's northern stronghold. That is all for this episode of G Fun Facts Online. Thank you for listening.